So in this video, I'm going to attempt to survive 100 days in hardcore with the main goal of hunting and taking out every Minecraft boss. Currently, we have 4 main bosses in Minecraft, which are known as the Ender Dragon, who rules the End Dimension, the Wither, who we can summon by collecting 3 heads from a nether fortress, the Elder Guardian, which dwells in the ocean monument under the sea, and last but not least, the Warden, a very powerful being that lurks in the deep, dark caves. So, are you ready to come along with me on the journey of taking down these 4 bosses of Minecraft all within 100 days of hardcore? If so, let's get started. The first day started off with me spawning on the side of this island, where I quickly gathered some wood and equipped myself with a wooden pickaxe, which soon enough enabled me to upgrade to some stone tools. I also found some iron and coal, which I mined up, and then I went out hunting to gather some food. It didn't take me too long to start feeling a bit hungry, so I crafted up a furnace, and while my food was cooking, I made myself a bed. While exploring, I ended up stumbling across a really deep cave and began to make my way down. This is where I was able to take out my first mob. Now if you're wondering why the zombie was wearing a carved pumpkin like I am right now, it's because I started recording these 100 days on the 31st of October, which was Halloween. Anyways, I continued to explore the caves and I came across an emerald ore, which I mined with a stone pickaxe. I actually didn't know that you needed an iron one to be able to do this, so I was a bit disappointed as I only got one. But not soon after, I was able to get my hands on a couple more. I carried on collecting a bunch of iron, and while I headed on deeper into the cave, I came across some of this, which I actually don't know the name of, but what I do know is that it means danger. So I obviously decided to investigate further by just digging straight down. I assumed if I carried on doing this, I may be able to come across an ancient city somehow. I'm not sure if that's how it works, but not soon after I was rewarded with some diamonds and some more. I ended up making it all the way to bedrock, and I guess this is not the way you try to find an ancient city, so I gave up and I headed back up to the surface. I then did some more exploring and came across another cave where I found myself more iron, coal and lapis. This cave then ended up getting a whole lot bigger, which looked super cool yet kind of scary at the same time. Down here I did some more mining, which I won't bore you with, but here's a couple of diamonds that I came across, which I was able to use on a chest plate, pickaxe and some boots. I then started to run low on food, which meant it was time to head back up to the surface. When I was back up, the last few ores were smelting and it was time to head to sleep. The next day I did some more exploring and came across a pillager outpost where I could actually see some allays. This was my first time ever seeing them in game, and I decided to head straight on over to set them free, as well as the iron golem. I headed on up to check what kind of rewards I was able to get my hands on, and unfortunately it wasn't too good. But nearby was this weird generated village, and from it I was able to grab myself some good loot. I also spotted some endermen and took them out, as growing ender pearls early on into the game is going to be very useful for when it is time to fight the ender dragon. I then made my way over to this lake and planted some sugar canes, as my next goal is to get some paper to make some bookshelves for an enchantment table. And with the remaining diamonds I got, I crafted myself up a diamond helmet, which meant me only had some leggings to go to complete the set. Near to where I decided to set up a little base, I spotted another cave, but it didn't seem to lead too down, so I carried on looking around the area and ended up coming across another village. This village wasn't too far from the one I had just found, which was great, and it also had a ruined nether portal, so I dashed straight over. After stealing the loot from the village, I made my way over to the portal, which never had anything interesting besides some obsidian. On my way back, I stumbled across another cave, which was just perfect for me to explore to find some more diamonds to complete my armor, and hopefully to upgrade some of my tools. So I crafted myself a bucket, got some water, and headed on down. This cave had loads and loads of mobs, but it wasn't a problem for me. While I was fighting the zombie, I ended up running into some diamond ore, as well as a skeleton which was guarding it, and I was able to get myself 4 diamonds from it. I continued to light up the cave so I could see better, and hopefully so it could become more safer for me to explore, and luckily ran into some more diamonds. Not soon later, I then perfectly had enough diamonds to craft myself some leggings. While I was running around the caves, I came across a skeleton spawner, which I was able to get myself a name tag from, and I also came across another spawner which seemed to be a spider one. Luckily, nearby to this was also some more diamonds. After all that mining, it was then time to head back up to the surface. On day 10, I made myself an enchantment table, and then went on a murder spree. From this, I was able to get some leather and made myself a decent amount of bookshelves. The next 2 days were spent doing the same thing, but instead I grabbed my bed and headed out further. Here I was able to collect some more sugar canes, take out some more cows, and finally complete the enchantment table. The only problem now being was that I wasn't at 30 XP, so I went out mining again and collected lapis, redstone, gold, and also another diamond. With the diamonds I got, I then made myself a diamond sword, and I was planning on enchanting my chestplate but figured that enchanting my bow would be a bad idea, as it would be way more useful when I am planning on fighting the Ender Dragon. From the enchantment table, I was able to get power 4 and unbreaking, which wasn't too bad, but all I needed now was some infinity. This now led my focus on now selling with villagers and gathering some more emeralds. After dealing with some villagers, I then started to wonder if I could get infinity from an enchantment table, so I enchanted another bow to check, but it didn't really seem likely. So in order to get myself back up to 30 XP, I decided to collect some more obsidian and make myself another portal. I put on some gold boots, jumped into the portal, and spawned in probably the most terrible nether biome of all time. But anyways, I then got to work on collecting some quartz to get my XP back up again. And once I was done, I then made my way back to the overworld. I then spent day 15 and day 16 doing some enchanting, disenchanting, collecting some more XP, and then doing some more enchanting until I was quite content with what I had so far. It was then time to head back into the nether and find myself a nether fortress. Now this part may look a bit sus, but I was actually collecting some quartz and then some netherrack as I needed it to bridge across when I was traveling to the nether, and I came across a piece of ancient debris. It was kind of weird, but I ain't complaining. I then continued to explore around the nether and ended up coming across a fortress. I located the closest blaze spawner and started to take some of them out. When I got myself a good amount of blaze rods, I then came across a warp forest, which I thought would be a good idea to stop by as I could gather some more ender pearls, which I would need for the end portal. Once I was back in the overworld, I crafted myself some more eyes of ender, enchanted, disenchanted, and enchanted my diamond boots until I had some pretty decent enchantments for it. I then made myself a potion of strength and placed them inside a chest, where I was preparing stuff that I was going to need for the ender dragon fight. The next potion I wanted to make was some potions of slow falling, but I actually didn't have any phantom bone brains on me, so it meant that I had to hide in some cover and stay awake all night, hoping that someone would spawn, but unfortunately none did. So I then spent the next day back in the mines, where I came across a bunch of redstone, gold, and also another diamond. Once I was back up to the surface, I figured that I'd do some more trading with the villagers, so I grabbed some hay bales that I had, turned them into wheat, and then in return got some more emeralds. I also collected any pumpkins that were laying around the area and traded that too. When I had made it back up to 30 XP, I enchanted my diamond pickaxe, which I was then able to get efficiency 4 and unfortunate 3 on it. It was then time to start working on some trades, so I headed over to the villager, and after I took care of this guy, began to get to work. It didn't take too long for me to get a decent trade, which I definitely wanted for my sword, but first I had to head on over to get some paper. Unfortunately, once I made it back, it was too late and I didn't even realize, so I locked in the trade and it was the wrong one. So I had to end up finding another victim, which I trapped and forcefully tried to give it a job. And after a really long time, I finally got a mending trade, which I quickly locked in by selling some paper, and once I grabbed some emeralds, wrote the book and applied it straight to my chestplate. I then decided to stay awake again for the night as I was still waiting for some phantoms to spawn. Unfortunately none did, so I spent the night mining instead and collected a bunch of more iron and lapis. The next couple of days were spent trading and breeding the villagers, as well as having some phantoms finally visit. With the membranes I collected, I was able to make myself some slow falling potions and was then somewhat prepared to take on the ender dragon, so I gathered what I needed and began my journey to the end portal. On day 27, I had finally made it to the stronghold and spent way too long than I should have trying to locate the portal room. But once I did, I placed in the ender eyes and it was then time to take on the first boss. Once I was in the end, I started to build up to the towers and started to take out the crystals. Once I got rid of them all, I started to shoot my arrows at the dragon. It didn't take me too long to finally free the end and collect all this lovely XP, which got me to such a perfect number. Anyways, I then started to make my way up to the gateway and began searching for an end city. I looked around for quite a bit and then finally came across an end city which also had a ship. I grabbed myself the elytra, looted up the place, and with the 2 shulker shells that I had, made myself a shulker box. I also thought that I may as well combine this chestplate that I had with the one I just found, and then continue to explore the end. Soon after, I then stumbled across another city, and this one was huge. After battling these shulkers, I soon realized that my helmet was basically on the verge of death, so I used a diamond to heal it up, and I was also able to get my hands on another elytra. It was then time to head back to the overworld, so I jumped through the portal and was finally home. But if I was being honest, it wasn't much of a home. I was basically homeless, so I think it's time to finally make one. I looked around the area and found myself a decent location, and my plan was to build myself a hobbit hole sort of base. When I had finally brought my stuff over to the new location, I then ran a search for some spruce trees. After a bit of exploring, I didn't seem to come across any, so I decided to settle with some oak and birch wood. Once I made it back, it was then time to begin the construction of the base. This actually took me a lot longer than expected, and I was finally done on day 47. So let me take you on a quick tour. So in these rooms, I am basically keeping a bunch of chests which are somewhat organized. Through here, I basically have just my bedroom, and if we come up this way, here is where I am keeping the enchantment table. We also have a little area for crafting. Here is a window where I can look out of and enjoy the views, and through here we have a trophy room. We have the Ender Dragon head on display, and next up, this spot right here is for the Wither. But before I even plan on taking out the next boss, I need to first sort out my armor and tools, as I was still missing some crucial enchantments like protection 4 and mending. This meant it was time for one of the most unexciting things to ever do in Minecraft: transporting villagers. Yeah, this dude thought he was going to be staying in my home. My plan was to keep him under my base, so I started to dig out a tunnel all the way down and basically made a room. It was more like a hole than a room, but let's just call it a room because it sounds better. When I made it back up, it was basically nighttime, which meant that I could turn a villager into a zombie. I also had this other zombie villager that I came across when building my base, who has been chilling under here for a while. I then lured over a zombie, hid for a while, and not after long it had turned the villager into a zombie. So I pushed him down into his new home, which he wasn't lonely in for too long, as I soon brought him a companion. Next up was crafting some potions of harming so I could cure the zombified villagers, but I first needed some brown mushrooms. So I spent the next couple of days basically checking caves, trying to find myself a dark oak forest, until I finally came across a spruce village. From the village, I was able to acquire some pretty decent loot, and while roaming through the forest, I collected some brown mushrooms that I needed. When I had made it back home, I began to craft myself the potions of weakness, which I splashed onto the villagers and then fed them each a golden apple. While I waited for them to be cured, I decided to steal all the beds from the village, as they would come in handy later when it was time for breeding them. When they were finally cured, I was able to buy myself 3 very cheap mending books. I then began to work on some more trades, as I was mainly looking for Unbreaking 3 or Protection 4. As a mending villager I had also leveled up, I decided to buy the Fire Aspect 2 trade, which he also sold. While I was busy working on the trade, another villager decided to join us. After a lot of breaking and replacing the lectern, I had finally gotten an Unbreaking 3 trade, which I of course brought. When I made it back to my house, I started to do some enchanting, starting with my diamond leggings, boots, helmet, and lastly my diamond sword. I then wanted to take a bit of a break from spending my time with the villagers, so I spent it with some cows and sheep instead, and I also built them at home. I then gathered the rails that I had and then started to bring the rest of the villagers over from the village. The next day I brought 2 of them over and they made some friends pretty quick. One of the villagers were already a farmer, and I definitely wanted to make his trades a lot more cheaper in order to get more emeralds. So I trapped him inside of a minecart for now and focused on trying to get the other villagers to give me a protection 4 trade. I soon got annoyed having to deal with the other villagers, the iron golems, and the babies escaping, so I moved the villagers to another area and continued to work on the trades. During this time, I also decided to give the space a bit of a makeover. I did this by expanding it into another area where I planned to grow some crops. From the babies that grew up, I then had a bunch of villagers ready to convert into zombies and cure them for cheaper trades. But I first needed some more gold for golden apples. So I then had to build myself a portal, which I of course messed up. I always do this for some reason, I don't know why, but anyways, I fixed it and it was then time to head to the nether. Before I headed into the nether, I realized that I didn't have mending on my pickaxe, which honestly wasn't good, especially this far in the game. So I quickly bought a book, enchanting the pickaxe, and then dived straight into the portal. I was soon greeted by a ghast, which I honestly destroyed and got an achievement. After this, I began collecting a bunch of quartz or XP, as well as some gold. When I was back in the overworld, I crafted up the golden apples that I needed, which gave me a total of 5 for now. Next, I had to get myself a zombie, so I headed out into the night, lured one straight in, and listened to the peaceful sounds of my villagers yelping in pain. Once they were all turned, I splashed them with a potion of weakness and fed them each a golden apple. Soon my villagers were all cured, and I then began working on some more trades again. But soon after, I got myself a protection 4 trade for 10 emeralds. I was then broke on emeralds, so I had to expand my farm, made myself another farmer, and locked in these trades as well. Since I was still in need of more emeralds, I decided to head around the area to look for some more pumpkins, as I remember coming across some when I was exploring before. Trading these got me a couple more emeralds that I used to buy myself another protection 4 book. As my chest plate already had protection 4 on it, I decided to use the 2 books on my leggings and boots. My armor was then looking pretty good, but my diamond sword definitely needed some more work. But I didn't want to spend my time working on trades because, as you can imagine, it was very boring, so I decided to go netherite mining instead. Here I spent the rest of day 59 and 60 and unfortunately only came across 1 piece of ancient debris. Back in the overworld, I now had 2 pieces of netherite scrap and noticed I was very broke on iron, as I spent most of it on rails and minecarts. I was going to need a lot of iron as I wanted to have some iron golems to help me out when fighting the wither. So it's time to clear out this area and build myself an iron farm. When the farm was finally completed, I then decided to build myself another one. This one was going to be a mob farm as I really needed some more XP. Once the build was done, I of course had to test it out. The next day, I then bought myself a looting 3 and a mending book which I applied to my diamond sword. As my pickaxe was basically about to break and my XP was really low, I decided to AFK at the farm for a bit. After being AFK for a bit, I then collected the gunpowder that was in a chest and also some sand. This was going to be for some TNT that I was going to use to help me get some more ancient debris. So I crafted up around 27 pieces and then headed into the nether and started to blow stuff up. From this expedition, I was able to get my hands on around 6 pieces of ancient debris. This gave me a total of 8 where I could have made myself 2 netherite ingots, but before I used it on my armor, I decided to buy myself an Unbreaking 3 and a mending book for the elytra that I had, and then crafted up some fireworks and went on a search for another fortress. At the fortress, I started to take out a bunch of wither skeletons in order to get their heads. This actually took me a couple of days, and after a bunch of killing, I finally had my hands on 3 heads that I needed. But before I headed back, I actually wanted to get my hands on 1 more, as I wanted to have 1 more head to display in my trophy room. When I had finally got my hands on 4 wither skeleton heads, it was then time to head back to the overworld. Here I decided to AFK at the iron farm. Like I said before, I needed a bunch of iron for iron golems to help me fight the wither. I ended up getting around 12 iron blocks, which would make me 3 iron golems that I hoped would be enough. It was then time to head straight to the cave, so I made my way down and dug a little hole. I hired some help and then summoned in the wither. Actually, never mind, I missed. But anyways, the wither was then finally spawned and my iron golem started to do a lot of damage. While I was trying to get in some shots, a horde of zombies just came out of nowhere, but I took care of them and then my attention was back to the wither. I continued to fire my shots and strike it with my sword, and before I knew it, it was then finally defeated and I got my reward, the Nether Star. There we go, we had finally taken another boss down. The Ender Dragon and the Wither are now ticked off the list. All we have remaining now is the Elder Guardian and the Warden, and we are on day 78, which meant we really don't have that long to go. So I began to get prepared to take on the Elder Guardian straight away, but I first actually had to locate an ocean monument. As well as this, I also had to get my hands on some puffer fish for some water breathing potions. While I flew around, I found a sunken ship that stored some treasure for me and a map. I also came across a warm ocean biome, which was what I needed to gather some pufferfish. After I gathered a couple, I then ran into another ship that had a diamond for me. I then followed the map, which also led me to some more loot. Not soon after, I then finally located an ocean monument and screenshotted the codes for it. When I was back home, I then crafted up the water breathing potions that I needed and started to get things ready that I thought would come in handy when taking on the Elder Guardian. Next, I then crafted up the 2 netherite ingots and upgraded my chestplate and leggings. Before I wanted to fight the Elder Guardian, I actually wanted to get myself sharpness 5 for my sword, as it would be very useful when fighting the guardians at the ocean monument. So after a bunch of breaking and replacing the left in with no luck, I then got bored and decided to AFK out the mob farm for a bit. After doing this again, the villager then sold me what I needed, but it was very overpriced and it was also sharpness 4. But I decided to lock in the trade anyway, and once night fell, I converted it, cured it, and then bought the book for 24 emeralds instead. My plan was to buy 2 books, that way I could merge them into 1 and get sharpness 5. The only problem was that I had to gather more emeralds, so after a bunch of farming, stealing, and selling, I was able to buy the second book, and got my sharpness 4 to sharpness 5, which I applied to my sword. On the night of day 83, I then set out to take on the 3rd boss. When I arrived at the ocean monument, I splashed myself with the potions and then headed straight in. When I was in there, I actually forgot what I was supposed to do, but soon realized that I actually had to fight and kill 3 Elder Guardians, which would basically remove the mining fatigue effect. I then located the first one and it didn't take me too long to take it out. While swimming around, I then ran into the second one and greeted it the same way. The last Elder Guardian actually took me quite a while to find, but once I did, I took it out. Unfortunately, ocean monuments don't really have that much treasure to offer, besides some sponges. So after I collected some of that, I then headed back home. That is another boss taken down. All we have now to defeat is the Warden, which, if I'm being honest, I am not looking forward to, as it can basically take you out in one shot. So it was then time to start getting prepared. The first thing I did was start gathering some more XP and also healed my pickaxe, as the next thing I wanted to do was to head to the nether and get my hands on some more ancient debris. With the gunpowder that I collected from the farm, I made myself some more TNT, flew to a new area and started to mine my way down. I was out of TNT and got myself around 7 pieces. My pickaxe was also nearly broken, so I decided to head back to the overworld. Here I upgraded my diamond boots to netherite with the ingots that I had, and I also healed up my pickaxe and made some more TNT. After doing some more netherite mining, I was rewarded with 5 more pieces. I soon realized why my pickaxe was breaking so fast, and it was because I actually never had them breaking on it, but I soon fixed that and crafted up 2 netherite ingots that I used on my diamond helmet and sword. Now I was feeling way more ready to take on the Warden, but I first had some potions to craft up. I made myself some night vision, which would be very useful down in the caves, and also some potions of strength and healing. It was then time to head on out and locate an ancient city. I remember at the start I came across a deep dark biome, so I headed towards that area and checked some of the caves along the way. One of the caves I found was huge, but it never had what I was looking for. I soon came across another cave which also never had a deep dark biome, but it did have a diamond for me. I then headed into another cave and ended up coming across some deep dark blocks. I headed through further and saw a skulk sensor, which scared the life out of me, and I also got the Sneak 100 achievement. After taking care of some mobs and finding more diamonds, I dug at least 20 blocks in this direction. As if the Warden did come close to me, I was able to get out of the range of its attack. Once I was happy with the tunnel, I gathered the stuff that I needed, and it was then time to finally awake him. I was too scared to head closer to do this, so I just shooted some arrows. Things started to get dark and I wasn't sure if the Warden could see me or not, so I started to make my way closer and realized that the Warden was in fact trapped. He was stuck inside of a hole in the ground, which was honestly perfect. So all I had to do was shoot some arrows at him, which was the most easiest yet scariest thing I had to do in Minecraft. Not soon after, the Warden was then finally defeated in the most least exciting way, but we did it. Now, I know that the Warden isn't intended to be killed, but I still wished he dropped something cool besides this. Anyways, I didn't want to spend any more time down here, so I quickly began to make my way back up to the surface. When I made it back home, I took a good look at my boss trophy room and placed down the final block that we got for taking out the Warden, which meant that I had finally defeated every Minecraft boss in just about under 100 days of hardcore. I was super proud of myself for coming this far and making it out alive. So we still actually have 4 more days left, and I spent them by doing some farming, breeding my animals, setting my villagers free to explore the world, AFKing, and before I knew it, I watched the sunset on day 99 and then went to bed and woke up to day 100. So we have survived 100 days in hardcore Minecraft, and we have accomplished a lot in this video. We got ourselves a full set of netherite armor, built an awesome base, took out the Ender Dragon, the Wither, the Elder Guardian, and last but not least, the Warden, and survived to tell the tale. Anyways, I really do hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to drop a like, subscribe if you are new, and I guess I'll see you guys in the next one.